So, as we all know, Theresa May was going to be the former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. She was the one that was basically took over in regards to getting Britain out of the European Union, famously called Brexit. So she will quit as the Conservative leader on June 7th, paving way for a contest and to decide who will be the new Prime Minister. So in an emotional statement that's now becoming a famous internet meme already, I don't know if you guys seen
I haven't seen this.
They're funny.
Okay.
They're
Good.
very funny.
I bet. She has a lot of memes already.
She has done her best to deliver Brexit, and it was a matter of deep regrets, quote unquote, that she has been unable to do so. I think she's grateful that she hasn't, because it would have been a complete disaster if she did. So basically, Miss May said she would continue to serve as Prime Minister while a Conservative leadership contest took place. The party said it hoped a new leader could be in place by the end of July. It means Miss May will still be Prime Minister when United States President Donald Trump makes his state visit to the UK at the start of June. So we'll be seeing that sometime very soon. When asked about this, President Trump said, "I feel very badly for Theresa. I like her very much. She's a good woman. She worked very hard. She's very strong." Miss May, she would step down as Tory leader again on June 7th and had agreed with the chairman of the Tory backbenchers that the contest to replace her should begin the following week. Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt has become the latest MP to state that he will run, including Boris Johnson, Esther McVeigh, and Roy Stewart. More than a dozen other MPs are believed to be seriously considering entering the contest as well. However, this is again a very important issue, because whoever's going to be the next prime minister, as we said before, will also decide the fate of Julian Assange and whether or not they will still adhere to the UK's laws about sending or extraditing somebody to a country that has the death penalty laws.
Unless they extradite him very soon, and I'm still not familiar enough with UK law to say how much sway does the prime minister have over a judicial ruling.
Yes.
So I'm not 100% certain of that.
You know what? And again, that's a very good point to really bring up, because whoever's the next prime minister will have to still be dealing with the fallout of Brexit, dealing with the European Union, and trying to create a coalition government that could still maintain, the daily, maintenance and maintain the government in Great Britain. So there are some other issues to take into account. But again, whoever's going to be the prime minister may want to earn some favors with the United States, including with President Trump. So
she has nothing to lose, because she's going to be resigning very soon.
Yes. So
I don't quite understand. I'm curious what your take is on this. She's saying she's resigning because of her failure to deliver Brexit.
Yeah.
There's clearly still a lot of opposition. There's a lot of discussion in the UK about how it should be done, if we can even get out of the fact that we wanted to do it. We, meaning the UK, I cannot imagine an American president resigning over failing to do something
I can add on to this. So here's the thing, and we've been following a little bit with the Brexit story, what's been happening, Paul. So when it comes down to Brexit, there was a lot of emotion to it. A lot of people voted in it who didn't really know really what it meant in the long run.
They were lied to, just like in the USA. You'll save this much money on healthcare. We send this much money, and none of it was true.
But the thing is, everyone was so excited as soon as the vote happened. Then everyone decided, okay, well, what's going to happen? And the idea, and we've seen a couple of videos on this too, where basically the conservative government wanted to have its cake and eat it too. But the European Union, I don't think they took into account that when
is she legally compelled to resign?
I think not really, but I think this is a political. But for her, it's like a political embarrassment, because she couldn't really.
This was humiliating, because
no one would be humiliated by that in American politics. No one.
It's a little different, because in a U.S. case, if we kind of give something of an equivalent, it would be the equivalent of Texas trying to secede diplomatically from the U.S. and it's kind of what's happening in Texas being like, well, we have all this leverage and everything, and then the U.S. is like, no, you don't. And that's very much what happened, that the Brexit happened for a lot of reasons. People were, just like in the U.S., there's a lot of tension with how the government's being run. It got focused on a single issue, which was Brexit. People felt like the UK was losing autonomy in their own country to the EU, so that's the big contentious issue. Everyone's walking into, you have both parties have different views, but they're very much like, okay, we're in the EU. So James Cameron, of course, who just started this entire domino effect, says, okay, we're going to do a non-binding referendum. And another part of this is there was someone that in the UKIP that got, I'm not super familiar with how the UKIP's how exactly they cut
structure. And all that.
So then you had someone who won the lottery who funded most of this entire thing. You had people running around in buses saying this money will be saved, which it really wasn't. So all these people went to the polls to vote on this non-binding referendum, but it was very much treated as a binding referendum. Because as much as it may be a surprise in England, they seem to care a little bit more about the will of the people than the U.S. does because of how they're structured. So when this vote happened with James Cameron, he's like, oh, wow, because he thought that everyone was going to be like, no, we're going to remain in the EU because they're so economically tied themselves together, just like with, we are with China right now in a very similar fashion. So Great Britain thought that, okay, well, we're going to do this Brexit. We're going to walk out of this thing. And we're the UK. We have a huge economy. We're super powerful. The EU will have to bend the knee to us, and we'll have a negotiation with them. But the EU, similar to how the US would act, is like, we're not going to give any quarter because if we do anything and it looks like it's beneficial, then everyone else will just leave the EU right after. So what turned out was the UK didn't have what they thought they had in terms of negotiating, and there's actually a really fantastic CGP Grey video that goes into all the demands that the UK has for leaving the EU are untenable if they want to also have a relationship with the EU. So as an example, they're so tied with their commerce that if 1 second was added to every single package that came in terms of processing, and because then they'd have, just like right now, you can move stuff from Texas to Oklahoma, no issue. There's no issue crossing the borders. But if you want to move it, to Mexico, that's a different issue.
Right.
So if they did that right away, a huge amount of their business economy would fall apart. A huge amount of their economy is tied directly to the EU. There are, hundreds of thousands of people from the EU that live in UK. Okay, so we get to that point. Theresa May comes in and says, I will be the one that makes this work. And she can't because, again, the things that the UK wants as a requirement for leaving the EU are simply incompatible at their core to what the EU wants.
There's another thing, too, to take into account, and this is something that we've seen some documentaries on as well, and that is the border between Northern Ireland and Ireland as well. And remember, Theresa May was leading the charge saying that she would get the United Kingdom out of the European Union. But should that have happened, you could escalate tensions in Ireland. Yeah. And mind you, they have a very sustainable peace at this moment. But should another border be put up, you can escalate tensions again and reignite
very fresh wounds there with a border crossing.
And reignite tensions between Northern Ireland and Ireland again after
there's a peace that couldn't exist if they did Brexit. And again, because if they make a wall between Northern Ireland and Ireland, then you have everything comes back, the tensions come back, the NRA comes back, everything comes back. And if you don't have a wall there, then you're basically doing an unmanned border. So then UK goods that are from the Republic of Ireland can just move right into the UK, which would completely get away with the entire point of having separate borders. Yeah. Kit said it so well at the very beginning. They are trying to have their cake and eat it too, and they simply cannot. It is unfeasible. It is impossible unless they change their position. So she could either preside over this entire thing falling apart and just exploding in her face, or she can say, I'm resigning, someone else take care of it.
Right. So this whole thing culminates in a new election in the UK, presumably, right? Depending on how it plays out, and we don't know when or whatever. So the line of succession for the Tories is, you read out the list of names earlier. The most notable one there is Boris Johnson, and then the other one to talk about is for the Labour Party, of course, is Jeremy Corbyn, who made, as the Bernie Sanders of the UK, made a great run last time.
Okay,
you're ready.
So hold on. I actually got to read a comment from the super chat. This is also a Patreon member too. I'm assuming it's the same person. Giffy, saying the UK leaving the EU is like Texas, or saying the UK leaving the EU is like Texas leaving the United States is a terrible comparison. The members of the EU don't consider themselves a state in a country. They want to be sovereign, right? And that's actually true. They're sovereign countries.
Let me clarify. So the reason I use that is there really isn't I can't think of a better. It's a good bad example. It illustrates the point enough. So it's like the EU.
It's not an exact correlation.
It's similar to maybe the U.S. before the federal government really got running and moving, because right now the EU is in a position where it's, of course, trying to consolidate power and gain control and all these different things. And that's why I give the state analogy, because it's the closest thing I could think of.
And Giffy, by the way, you are now an honorary Captain General of the Heartlands Media team.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for that donation. Again, people on Super Chat and our Patreon supporters, which Giffy is now both, apparently could wear both hats. But thank you for your...
But I want to make the ultimate point, the reason I made that is I see the EU lasting long enough. I think that it will be different, just like it was in the U.S. States thought they had a lot more autonomy way back when the country first started, and I would say that European countries feel like they have a lot more autonomy. But if you put the EU long enough, just like the federal government, it's going to have a very similar effect by definition.
It's only a matter of time. I mean, again, there's a little bit more stuff we have to research into the European Union.
Look at how hard it is it's impossible for the UK to completely entangle themselves with the EU, just like it would be with any state.
Yeah. And
so I agreed it's not the best comparison, but there aren't a lot of good comparisons.
It's the only comparison we got because the United States is in part... I mean, unless we want to put in a hypothetical scenario that NAFTA is similar to the European Union, which in fact they're two different things altogether.
It's like permanent norm. It's a lot of different things. Again, we live in a brave new world.
Yeah. So be prepared to see, as we move into a new election in the UK, a lot of renewed disingenuous anti-Semitic attacks at Jeremy Corbyn, or claims that he is anti-Semitic, because that's the predominant smear that they use for Jeremy Corbyn. Can't wait to see more Jeremy Corbyn speeches popping up.
Even though Jeremy Corbyn was the one who was comforting the people from that disastrous tower fire, and Theresa May was basically wandering around and not even engaging with the people.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, when you look at someone like Jeremy Corbyn, at least he's able to step up and lead and be with the people, especially those who might think differently than him.
And he's also in stay.
Yeah,
he wants to either redo the ballot or something. But like,
he's a Remain.
The UK is in such a groundbreaking position where all this happened. But it represents the common occurrence that we see throughout the planet of a fight between populism and status quo, and that's another part of this argument with the UK. Is a lot of people feel like, again, they're losing sovereignty in their own country, and but
there's also corruption too, and neoliberalism to some extent in the UK Parliament as well.
It's a different way of expressing what is happening to many countries all over the planet.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I mean, right now, Theresa May resigning may be the best thing for the United Kingdom, because I think even she realized that she cannot deliver this promise of getting the United Kingdom out of the European Union. It is a monumental task, and the whole process of doing it would require a delicate surgical hand, not just a hammer. And that's what the whole Brexit thing was. It was just a hammer to the system, and no one really figured out. Or better yet, a better analogy is Brexit is like the dog that finally caught the car. Yeah, they didn't know what to do with it after you finally. I'm taking that from the Joker, though. The
what
dog
is
that
happening
caught the car.
Is this populism is resuming itself like it has in the past, and places can either move to the left or they can move to the right.
Yep.
And it is just playing out this way in the UK, and this is as much to them what Trump is to us, and what it represents, what causes it, and what's going to go forward. It's just the world is redefining itself.
Yep. And then, again, thank you, Giffy, for your support.
Thanks for watching. If you like that content, make sure you hit that subscribe button, smash that bell icon so you know when new videos come out, and make sure you hit that thumbs up.